What if I told you it's not your looks, your height, or your money that's pushing women away? What if the real reason is something in your behavior you don't even notice? You think you're being nice, you think you're being attentive, you think you're showing interest. But what if you're actually suffocating attraction? Let's talk about it. Neediness and confidence can look almost identical on the surface, but emotionally they are worlds apart. A needy man and a confident man may both express interest, both pursue, both compliment, both invest time. The difference is not in the action, it is in the energy behind the action. Neediness says, I need you to choose me so I can feel worthy. Confidence says, I choose you because I already feel worthy. And women are exceptionally intuitive when it comes to sensing that difference. You can say all the right words, follow all the right dating advice, and still quietly communicate insecurity if your internal state is unstable. When your mood depends on her replies, when your self-esteem rises and falls with her attention, when a delayed message creates anxiety instead of indifference, that is neediness. It is not about caring, it is about depending. And emotional dependency feels heavy. It feels like pressure. It feels like responsibility. No woman wants to feel responsible for regulating your emotions. Confidence, on the other hand, is emotional self-sufficiency. It is wanting her without needing her. It is enjoying her presence without fearing her absence. A confident man does not panic when there is silence. He does not over-explain himself when she pulls back slightly. He does not chase reassurance because he is already secure in who he is. His life remains full whether she is texting him or not. His purpose, his discipline, his friendships, his routine, they do not collapse because of romantic uncertainty. That stability is deeply attractive because it signals strength. It signals that he is grounded. And grounded men feel safe. Neediness also reveals itself in subtle behaviors, over-texting to maintain connection, constantly checking if she is upset, adjusting your opinions to avoid disagreement, apologizing excessively for things that do not require apology. These behaviors are not kindness. They are fear disguised as politeness, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough. And when fear leads, attraction fades. Confidence does not rush intimacy. It does not overinvest prematurely. It allows things to unfold naturally because it trusts its own value. When you stop trying to secure her interest and start securing your own self-worth, your entire energy shifts. You move slower, you speak calmer, you react less. And suddenly the dynamic changes because she no longer feels like your emotional oxygen. Over-pursuing energy is one of the fastest ways to kill attraction, yet most men mistake it for effort, passion, or romantic intensity. They believe that the more they show up, the more they text, the more they call, the more they prove themselves, the more secure the connection will become. But attraction does not grow through pressure. It grows through curiosity and space. When you over pursue, you are not demonstrating strength. You are revealing urgency. And urgency in dating often translates to scarcity. It signals that your world has narrowed down to one person, that your emotional focus is fixated, that you are trying to secure something before it slips away. Women can feel that tightening energy immediately. It feels like expectation. It feels like a silent demand for reciprocation. And when someone feels demanded, they instinctively resist. Over pursuing shows up in subtle but powerful ways. Double texting when she has not replied, sending long paragraphs to clarify small misunderstandings, rearranging your entire schedule at the last minute just to be available, complimenting excessively in hopes of keeping her interest alive, initiating every conversation, carrying the emotional momentum of the interaction alone. These behaviors might look like commitment, but underneath them is anxiety. Anxiety that if you stop pushing, everything will fade. Anxiety that if you create space, she will lose interest. But that anxiety is exactly what erodes attraction. When you chase too hard, you remove mystery. When you over explain, you remove tension. When you overgive, you remove the opportunity for her to invest. Healthy attraction requires balance. It requires a rhythm where both people lean in and lean back. If you are always leaning in, you create imbalance, and imbalance creates discomfort. A woman wants to feel chosen, not claimed. She wants to feel drawn in, not cornered. When your presence feels overwhelming instead of grounded, she begins to associate you with emotional pressure rather than emotional excitement. Over pursuing also communicates that you may not have other options, other priorities, or other sources of fulfillment. It subtly suggests that she is the center of your universe too soon. And when someone becomes your center before they have earned that position, it creates unconscious doubt about your standards. Attraction thrives when a man has direction, focus, and restraint, when he can step back without fear, when he allows conversations to breathe, when he does not rush to fill every silence, when he is engaged but not consumed. That calm restraint communicates abundance. It communicates that he values connection but values himself more. And that shift in energy transforms pursuit into magnetism. Emotional instability is one of the most subtle yet destructive forces in modern dating, and many men don't even realize they're displaying it. It's not about occasional mood swings or being human. It's about patterns of unpredictability that make a woman question her own emotional safety around you. When your reactions are inconsistent, when your confidence rises and falls based on her behavior, when a small disagreement can send you into panic or despair, it creates a volatile environment. Women are instinctively tuned to emotional patterns. They may not be able to articulate it immediately, but they sense when a man is emotionally grounded or emotionally reactive. Emotional instability communicates insecurity, fear, and lack of control. It signals that you are dependent on external factors to regulate your internal state, and that dependency subconsciously pressures her to take on a role she never signed up for, that of an emotional caretaker. No matter how attractive you are physically or intellectually, emotional volatility can erode trust and attraction faster than almost anything else. One of the most common forms of emotional instability is overreacting to small issues. A delayed text, a misinterpreted comment, a minor disagreement. These should be moments to pause and process, not triggers for anxiety or anger. Yet many men allow these small moments to spiral into dramatic emotional responses, which communicates a lack of emotional self-mastery. Emotional instability also shows up as jealousy and possessiveness. Questioning who she talks to, who likes her posts, or constantly seeking reassurance about her feelings can feel like protection from your perspective, but it comes across as control and insecurity. These behaviors are exhausting and suffocating, leaving women with a sense of walking on eggshells. Attraction thrives on stability, calm, and predictability because it allows a woman to relax into the dynamic rather than constantly assess the emotional risk of being around you. Another key aspect of emotional instability is mood dependence. When your mood changes dramatically based on interactions with her, her attention, her tone, or her schedule, you unintentionally teach her that she is responsible for your happiness. That is a heavy burden for anyone to carry. Confidence, by contrast, is emotionally self contained. A confident man experiences natural highs and lows, but they are not dictated by someone else's behavior. He can engage with a woman fully while remaining unaffected by minor shifts in her attention. Emotional stability communicates strength, security, and reliability. Women are drawn to men who can handle life's unpredictability without overreacting, men who can maintain calm in uncertainty, men whose presence feels safe instead of chaotic. Instability, in contrast, triggers a flight response. It triggers subconscious signals that this relationship will be stressful, unpredictable, and high maintenance. And the more these patterns persist, the more attraction diminishes. Lack of purpose is one of the silent killers of attraction, yet it's often overlooked because it doesn't scream like obvious neediness or emotional volatility. A man without direction may seem fine on the surface. He may be charming, funny, attentive, but there's a subtle emptiness that women instinctively sense. Purpose is magnetic because it communicates stability, ambition, and self reliance. When a man has a vision for his life, a plan, and a sense of mission, it signals that he is grounded, capable, and able to create a life that is not dependent on another person for validation or meaning. Conversely, a man without purpose projects an energy of passivity, boredom, or distraction. He drifts from moment to moment, reacts to circumstances instead of shaping them, and allows life to happen to him rather than taking control. Women are drawn to men who can lead themselves because it subconsciously assures them that he can also handle the complexities of a shared life. A lack of purpose communicates the opposite: uncertainty, instability, and emotional labor disguised as companionship. Purpose is not measured solely by wealth, status, or visible achievements. It is measured by consistency, effort, and growth. A man who is consistently working to improve himself, pursuing a passion, or building a vision communicates momentum, energy, and resilience. That momentum translates into attractiveness because it signals that he has a life of meaning outside the relationship. A man without purpose, however, relies too heavily on the relationship to provide excitement, validation, and direction. When a man's energy is entirely consumed by the woman he is dating, it triggers subtle signals of pressure, neediness, and overdependence. Women can feel when they are being placed in the center of a man's world too early, and it creates unconscious resistance. Instead of admiration, respect diminishes. Instead of attraction, responsibility grows. The relationship dynamic shifts from mutual enjoyment to caretaker and dependent, and no woman wants to feel responsible for creating a man's identity. Another consequence of lacking purpose is predictability without excitement. Life without ambition often feels flat, repetitive, and uninspiring. Women are naturally attracted to energy that challenges, excites, and inspires. When a man has no goals, no direction, no plans, he fails to ignite that spark. Conversations may feel shallow, outings feel routine, and interactions feel transactional rather than dynamic. Purpose adds depth, layers, and intrigue to a personality. It gives him stories to tell, lessons he's learned, and a sense of pride that radiates confidence. Without it, even good intentions and affection can feel hollow because the underlying energy lacks substance. Purpose, ambition, and direction create a magnetic pull because they communicate that this man is building a life worth sharing, not just passing time or waiting for external validation. Women instinctively detect this energy, and it becomes the foundation for respect, attraction, and long term engagement. Validation seeking is one of the most subtle ways a man can sabotage his own attraction, and it often hides behind behavior that seems innocent or even caring. Asking for reassurance, needing approval, or constantly checking if your actions are good enough communicates a lack of internal security. Women are naturally drawn to confidence because it signals stability, independence, and strength. When a man seeks validation externally, it communicates the opposite: uncertainty, dependence, and fragility. It's not the occasional question that's the problem. It's the pattern of relying on someone else to define your self worth. When your happiness, mood, and sense of identity are linked to another person's approval, it creates an unspoken pressure. Women feel this pressure even if they cannot articulate it. The more you ask, the more you chase reassurance, the more your energy becomes defined by her reactions instead of your own internal compass. That energy kills attraction because it signals that you are emotionally unavailable in the sense that your stability depends on her, not yourself. Validation seeking often shows up in everyday interactions. It can be as simple as constantly checking, "Do you like me?" or "Are you mad at me?" It can manifest in over apologizing for minor things, tailoring your opinions to match hers, or repeatedly asking for confirmation that she appreciates your efforts. These behaviors are not acts of attentiveness, they are acts of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being ignored, fear of not being enough. When a man asks for validation, he inadvertently puts the woman in a position of authority over his emotional state. He elevates her above him, and attraction naturally diminishes because attraction is built on respect and energy, not dependency. A confident man does not need constant confirmation. He expresses his feelings, makes decisions, and acts with integrity, but he does not hinge his value on someone else's response. That self contained energy creates freedom, space, and mystery, all of which are highly magnetic. Another subtle way validation seeking undermines attraction is through over explaining. When a man constantly explains his choices, actions, or feelings to ensure they are approved, he communicates insecurity. Confidence allows actions to speak for themselves. It allows space for a woman to notice, appreciate, or question without forcing her to serve as a mirror for your self worth. When your energy is directed outward toward reassurance rather than inward toward self assurance, you diminish your own presence. The more validation you seek, the more you chase, the more your energy signals scarcity. Women are drawn to men who are abundant in their sense of self, who enjoy interactions without needing them to define their emotional state, and who carry themselves with calm assurance that their worth is not up for debate. Fear of rejection is one of the most hidden yet powerful forces that silently destroys attraction, and it affects more men than they realize. It isn't just the fear of her saying no to a date or not replying to a message. It's the deeper anxiety that your value, your confidence, or your identity could be questioned or denied. When fear of rejection drives your actions, it changes your energy, your tone, and your choices in ways that are almost invisible but instantly noticeable. You might hold back your true opinions, avoid expressing what you want, or overcompensate with jokes, compliments, or attentiveness in an effort to be liked. Every word, every gesture, every decision becomes weighed against a silent calculation. Will she accept me? That calculation may seem logical on the surface, but unconsciously it communicates a lack of self trust, insecurity, and dependence on her approval. Women are wired to detect this. When they feel a man is holding back out of fear rather than showing up with authenticity and presence, attraction diminishes. The energy shifts from magnetic to anxious, and no amount of charm can fully mask it. Fear of rejection also manifests in hesitation and overthinking. You might rehearse conversations endlessly, worry about what to say next, or delay expressing interest because you are terrified of the outcome. That hesitation communicates uncertainty. Women are naturally drawn to decisiveness because it signals self assurance, clarity, and strength. When a man hesitates constantly, she senses the lack of emotional control. Even subtle avoidance, like not initiating contact, staying silent in moments where a reaction is expected, or hiding true intentions, creates a gap between who you are and how you show up. That gap erodes authenticity, and attraction thrives on authenticity. Fear of rejection often leads to over apologizing, over explaining, or bending over backward to avoid disappointing her. Ironically, these attempts to prevent rejection actually increase the risk of pushing her away because they communicate insecurity and emotional dependence. Another consequence of fear driven behavior is over-analysis of her actions. Every delayed reply, every vague message, or every neutral response is interpreted as a threat. You start reading into everything she does or says, trying to predict rejection before it happens. This oversensitivity communicates neediness without the obvious. Desperation, your energy becomes reactive, not grounded. Women respond to presence, calmness, and decisiveness, not reactive anxiety. Fear of rejection can also stunt authenticity. Men may avoid sharing opinions, making choices, or expressing desires because they worry she might not like it. Yet, attraction grows when a man is willing to take emotional risks, show vulnerability selectively, and stand firm in his values. The paradox is clear. The more you fear rejection, the less attractive you become because attraction favors courage, self possession, and emotional sovereignty. At the end of the day, attraction isn't about grand gestures, endless attention, or trying to control someone else's feelings. It's about who you are when no one is watching, the energy you carry, and the confidence you radiate without needing permission. Neediness, over pursuing, emotional instability, lack of purpose, validation seeking, and fear of rejection, they all have one thing in common. They shift your focus away from yourself and put it on her, creating pressure instead of presence. Women are drawn to calm strength, self reliance, and emotional stability. They feel safe with a man who has direction, who values himself, and who engages without fear. The more you master your inner world, the less you chase externally, the more naturally attraction flows. Confidence isn't about proving anything to her, it's about being grounded, being in your own lane, and allowing connection to happen organically. When you stop trying to secure her attention and start securing your own value, you don't just stop scaring women away. You become the kind of man they instinctively want to be around, the kind of man they respect, admire, and ultimately desire.